You will marry a high lord and rule this castle. And your sons shall be knights and princes and lords.
No, that's not me.
Arya Stark is the third child of Catelyn and Eddard Stark. Arya has an older brother, Robb, an older sister, Sansa, and two younger brothers, Bran and Rickon. She also has a bastard half-brother, Jon Snow. Eddard Stark, also known as Ned, is the Warden of the North, the largest of the major regions of Westeros. Lord Stark rules the region from Winterfell, the ancestral castle of House Stark. The sigil of House Stark is the direwolf, so when Arya's father and brothers come upon 5 direwolf pups whose mother has died, Jon convinces Ned that the Stark children were meant to have them.
There are 5 pups. 1 for each of the Stark children. They were meant to have them.
As the group is about to leave with the 5 pups, Jon hears a noise and discovers a 6th all-white pup, which Jon claims is his own. Arya names her direwolf Nymeria, after a legendary warrior queen who led her people across the narrow sea to Dorne to escape from the dragon lords of Valyria. Unlike her sister Sansa, who favors activities that are more befitting a highborn lady of Westeros, Arya prefers horseback riding, archery, and swordplay, activities that are usually reserved for boys. So when she hears her brothers outside practicing archery, she leaves her needlework lesson, grabs a bow, and outshoots Bran by hitting the bullseye. She knew what she was doing was against the rules, but when her father smiled, she knew it wasn't wrong. The rules were wrong. Arya's wildness and willfulness reminds Ned of his sister Lyanna.
Stop showing off!
Ned's father called it the wolf blood, and he remarks that Arya and Lyanna even resemble each other, which surprises Arya because Lyanna was beautiful, and that was something that was never said of her. Arya is described as wild, blunt, and difficult to control, and her tomboyish behavior and appearance causes people to often mistake her for a boy.
This must be your son. He has the look.
I'm a girl!
When Ned accepts the position of Hand of the King, it is decided that Sansa and Arya will accompany him to King's Landing. While Arya is packing for her new adventure in King's Landing, Jon arrives with a gift. Jon and Arya have a special bond. They both feel like outsiders. Arya because she's a tomboy and does not fit the idea of what is proper for a young, highborn lady, and Jon because he is not a true-born Stark. Arya wishes that he was going with them to King's Landing, but Jon is heading north with their Uncle Benjen to join the Night's Watch, a military order dedicated to guarding the wall on the northern border of the 7 Kingdoms from what lies beyond it. Jon's gift to Arya is a sword, a small skinny sword like the Braavosi use, that was made especially for her.
First lesson, sticking with the pointy end.
It won't hack a man's head off, he tells her, but it can poke him full of holes if she's fast enough.
Sansa can keep her sewing needles. I've got a needle of my own.
While traveling south to King's Landing, Arya enjoys exploring the areas near the King's Road, and riding along with the wagons, talking to people and making friends. Arya befriends Micah, the son of a butcher, and she asks him to help her practice sword fighting. During one of Arya and Micah's practice sessions, Sansa and Prince Joffrey come upon them along the banks of the Trident. Joffrey accuses Micah of trying to be a knight and threatens him. In spite of Arya's protests for Joffrey to stop, he refuses to relent, so Arya hits him with her stick. Joffrey turns his anger towards Arya and attacks her, but Nymeria lunges toward him and bites his arm, which causes him to drop his sword. Arya picks up the sword, throws it in the river, and flees with Nymeria at her heels. Fearing for Nymeria's life, Arya tells her direwolf that she needs to run away.
You've got to go. They'll kill you for what you did to Joffrey.
But Nymeria is devoted to Arya, so she hesitates to leave, and Arya is forced to chase her away with a rock. She feels ashamed about it, but she knows it's the only way to save Nymeria's life. When Arya is found by some Lannister guardsmen, she is brought before King Robert and Queen Cersei, where Joffrey accuses Arya and Micah of attacking him and of setting Nymeria on him. Arya calls him a liar, so Sansa is brought in to give her account of what happened. But Sansa claims that she doesn't remember because everything happened so fast. Arya accuses Sansa of lying as well and hits her. Cersei demands that Nymeria be killed, but since she has run away, she suggests that Sansa's direwolf lady should be killed in her place. Ned protests, but the king agrees with his wife and commands that lady be killed. Cersei orders Sir Ilyn Payne to perform the task, but Ned says that he will carry out the sentence himself since Lady is of the north and deserves better than a butcher. But he also wants to ensure that Cersei does not get Lady's pelt and that her body is taken back to Winterfell. Once they reach King's Landing, there is still tension between Sansa and Arya over the incident. Lady's death was horrible enough, but then Arya found out that Sandor Clegane, also known as the Hound, had run Micah down and killed him. She blames herself for everything that happened since she was the one that asked Micah to practice with her. She feels alone and wishes she could run away from King's Landing with Needle, find Nymeria, and return to Winterfell or go to Jon at the Wall. But her father's knock interrupts her dreams of escape. He sees Needle and asks her where she got the sword, but she doesn't answer. She could not lie to him, nor would she betray Jon, not even to her father.
Little lady shouldn't play with swords.
I wasn't playing. And I don't want to be a lady.
Arya tells her father that she hates all of them, including Sansa. But Ned tells her that if she must hate those that would truly do us harm, not her sister. They must not fight a war amongst themselves. He reminds her of their house words, winter is coming. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives.
Do you know the first thing about sword fighting?
Sticking with the pointy end.
That's the essence of it.
Unlike his father, who would not have permitted Lyanna to carry a sword, Ned decides to let Arya keep Needle. But he insists that she learn how to use it, so he hires Syrio Forel to train her. Syrio is a former First Sword to the Sea Lord of Braavos and Master of the Water Dance, a fighting style practiced by Braavosi sword fighters.
This is the Braavos dance. The water dance.
Unlike the fighting style of Westerosi knights, who hack and slash with heavy longswords and greatswords, water dancers favor slender, lighter swords for a faster, more elegant fighting style based on sword thrusts with a quick, fluid motion. This fighting style requires using greater agility to dodge or deflect attacks and make quick strikes at weak spots in an enemy's armor, so Syrio assigns Arya some tasks like chasing cats and standing on one leg to develop agility, quickness, and stealthiness. As a result of her training, Arya is often covered with scratches, scabs, and bruises, but she doesn't mind because Syrio told her that every hurt is a lesson, and every lesson makes you better. Tensions between the Starks and the Lannisters continue to intensify. Catelyn arrests Tyrion, Jaime attacks Ned, and Arya overhears two men speculating that the wolf and the lion will soon be at war. Arya is worried about her father's safety, which causes her to be distracted during one of her dancing lessons.
If you're with your trouble when fighting happens, more trouble for you.
Ned decides that Arya and Sansa need to return to Winterfell for their safety. But before they leave, the king is mortally wounded during a hunting accident and dies shortly thereafter. Joffrey is crowned king, but Ned refuses to bend the knee and swear fealty to him since he has learned that he is not Robert's trueborn son and therefore does not have a claim to the throne. Ned is arrested for treason, and war breaks out between House Lannister and House Stark, which is now under Robb's leadership. After Ned's arrest, Arya's dancing lesson is interrupted by Sir Meryn Trant of the Kingsguard and several Lannister guardsmen. Meryn claims that her father has instructed them to bring her to him, but when she takes a step forward to go with them, Syrio stops her and asks why Lord Stark would send Lannister guards instead of his own men. Meryn orders the guards to take Arya by force and kill Syrio. But Syrio is able to defeat all of the Lannister guards armed with only a wooden training sword, so Meryn takes matters into his own hands and attacks.
What do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
Go.
Arya flees to look for her father, but when she hears screams and the sounds of fighting coming from the area near their quarters, she decides to keep running. She is able to find her way out of the Red Keep by using some underground tunnels that she discovered while chasing a cat. Arya decides to go to the stable, where her father's men should be preparing to take her and Sansa out of King's Landing, but when she arrives, she sees that the men have been killed. She spots her trunk on the ground and is able to retrieve Needle, but she is discovered by a stable boy, who tries to stop her so he can turn her over to the queen and claim a reward. Arya is terrified, and all she can think of is Jon's first lesson: stick him with the pointy end. She turns around with Needle in her hand and thrusts the blade into the boy's abdomen, killing him. Arya runs away from the stable to try to find a way out of King's Landing, but nearly all the gates out of the city are closed, and the only two gates that are open are manned by guards. All she wanted to do was leave the city and go home, but every day she checks, it's the same thing. The gates are either closed or guarded. In the city, there is constant talk among the small folk about war, and the city guards are everywhere. Arya survives on the streets of King's Landing by catching pigeons to eat or trade for some questionable stew, and she sleeps in stables and rooftops with Needle safely tucked beneath her. While trying to barter a dead pigeon for a pastry, Arya hears bells and notices crowds of people running to the center of the city. When she asks someone what's happening, she learns that the King's Hand, Lord Stark, is being led to the Sept of Baelor. In order to get a view of the Great Sept, Arya climbs on the pedestal of Baelor's statue.
Baelor!
Ned confesses to treason, but instead of being granted mercy, as was previously agreed, Joffrey orders his execution. Arya tries to get to her father, but Yoren grabs her and holds her to his chest, telling her not to look. But Arya sees Sir Ilyn Payne draw ice, House Stark's ancestral sword, and she can hear Sansa screaming. Upon seeing the birds taking flight from the cheer of the crowd, Arya knows that her father is dead. Yoren takes Arya into an alley and cuts her hair to make her look more like a boy so that he can smuggle her out of the city as a Night's Watch recruit and take her north to her family. When Arya joins the group of other recruits that Yoren is taking to the wall, Arya is bullied by two boys, Hot Pie and Lamy, who want to take Needle. She defends herself and is able to scare them off with the help of another boy, Gendry. Disguised as a Night's Watch recruit, Arya goes undetected past the guards at the gate. As the entire group departs King's Landing, facing a long journey through a war zone to get to the wall, Arya wishes that the Blackwater would rise and wash away the city and everyone in it. But then she remembers Sansa will be washed away too, so she wishes for Winterfell instead. When we first meet Arya in Winterfell, she is happy and surrounded by her family that loves her. She feels safe, secure, and protected. But that was before she experienced so much loss and death. By the end of the season, she feels like the lone wolf that her father spoke of. She is alone and separated from her pack, but she will continue to draw upon Syrio's lessons to help her survive.